All right. Good afternoon. We're in the home stretch with breakout sessions. Woo! First of all, I just want to say that I feel extremely honored and privileged that you all are here today. I also have my family here, my husband and my son. So if you hear Elmo in the background, he is my emotional support YouTube in the background. So that's how Aaron is supporting me today. All right, let's get started. So as you saw, my name is Jomaira Ortiz. I'll get into a little bit more about who I am. But our workshop goals today: 1, provide immediate, doable steps after an autism diagnosis. Introduce the value of sensory strategies. And then at the end of it, of course, equipping parents, caregivers, grandparents, whoever you are that you're representing today, you, to take action while you're waiting for formal therapy to begin. Okay? All right. So, just a quick thing about us. Again, my name is Jomaira Ortiz. I have the privilege of running and co-founding with my husband a nonprofit called Rooted Hearts Ministries, and we exist to give hope to families of children who are newly diagnosed through resources, community, and education. And so, again, it was formed out of a really deep conviction that when our son Aaron was diagnosed at 19 months old, it was really hard at first to try and find therapy. I have a background in social work. I have my master's in social work. I'm a certified autism specialist, and I found it still really hard, even having this background knowledge. And so I started to think, well, if I'm having so much trouble, someone else, this can't just be me. And of course, you know, when you start digging and searching, you find a lot. And that's exactly what I found. I found just a whole community of families just like myself, just like us, who were really searching, just looking, waiting on wait lists up to a year, sometimes even longer for therapy. I see a lot of heads nodding, like, yep. And so that's really where Rooted Hearts started. We wanted to be a solution. We wanted to provide something to families that felt like we did and be able to just not just stay home and hope for someone to call us, but to be just to be able to jump into action and do something while we were waiting. And so, again, a little bit about myself. I have my master's in social work. I'm originally from New York City. I've been here in Charlotte for about 9 years now. So they say it takes 10 years before you become like a native of the place. So I have 1 more year to consider myself a Charlottean. So I'm holding on to that. As I mentioned, I'm also a certified autism specialist, and I have been a nonprofit for over 15 years. I love the nonprofit space. I love being able to serve families and individuals in all different facets. And more importantly, I am a wife, a mom, an advocate, and a believer. Those are the things that are most important to me, of course. All right, so how do we do all the things that I just mentioned? One of our signature programs is the Autism Sensory Toolbox, and I see some familiar faces here, so I know you all already came to our table and took advantage of our toolbox. They are individually curated toolboxes for families, just like probably all of us in here who are waiting for some kind of therapy to start. And Tanisa, wave at everyone. Tanisa is our Rooted Hearts lead evangelist, and she has something really special for us to all do at the end of this that is pertaining to sensory strategies and such. So we'll learn more about that later. All right, so we're gonna do a couple questions, and because it's really hot in here, I am so sorry. It was freezing in the other rooms and hot in here. So we're just gonna kind of keep the blood flowing to make sure we don't fall asleep. So I'm gonna read a series of questions or statements, and if it relates to you, if you can stand. If you can't, you can raise your hand, okay? So stand if this is your first autism-related conference or workshop. Woohoo, yes, okay. Okay, yeah, we can sit down now. It's gonna be a lot of standing and sitting, okay. stand if you've watched the same show or movie more than 10 times this week. That can be a skit on YouTube that is on repeat. Okay. Stand if coffee or your preferred beverage has helped you survive at least one meltdown. My husband. Okay. All right. Stand if you've ever felt overwhelmed since receiving your child's diagnosis. That's me. Yeah. Stand if you've had to Google, is this toddler or autism related behavior? That counts too. Is this like what toddlers do? What? Yes, I've been there. Okay. All right, we'll do a couple more of these. Stand if you've discovered that your child has a superpower you never expected. Okay, we're still discovering, and that could be anything. And I could share a little bit about my son's, I don't like the word superpower, but it's here, so just entertain me for a little bit. Okay, last but not least, stand if you love your child more than words could ever express. Yeah, me too. All right, thank you. So I think as you looked around, I'm sure, and you saw people standing and sitting, there's a lot of commonality, right? You may have walked in here not knowing a single person, or maybe you came with a spouse or a family member, and there might have been some anxiety, just not really knowing what to expect and all those things. But I hope that while you were doing that activity, that you can see that a lot of us have a lot of similarities. We experience a lot of the same things. We Google probably a lot of the same things, right? Because we're wondering, we're searching, we're looking for answers. And I gotta say, if you're in this room, you're already doing something right. So I just want you all to give yourselves a round of applause just for being in the room right now, please. Yes, awesome. All right, so really quickly, what is autism? I know we probably hear about this and we see autism traits and different things, but I thought let's ground us, let's really understand what the actual definition is, okay? So autism or autism spectrum disorder refers to a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with sensory regulation, social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, or nonverbal communication. Of course, we know no two children who are on the spectrum are the same. So you might have children who are super verbal and conversational, and maybe some of you are probably like, gosh, I wish that they would just not talk so much, right? And then you have other kids who maybe are currently non-speaking, or maybe minimally verbal, or their words kind of come and go and they're not reliable, right? Like there's just so many different things. But that's also what makes it a spectrum, that it's a variety of different things. Several factors may influence the development of autism, and it is often accompanied by sensory sensitivities and medical issues such as GI disorders, seizures or sleep disorders, mental health challenges like anxiety or depression, or ADD or ADHD. So I think a lot of times parents or practitioners kind of associate a lot of different symptoms and conditions to autism, when it really is that there's comorbid conditions happening at the same time. And when we're new to this journey, it's hard to tell which is which, right? And so it's important that we understand kind of the foundation of it to ground us, and then understand maybe it's GI stuff that's happening, and along with the autism diagnosis, such and such. As of 2022, I believe that the CDC will be coming out with a new report this year. It usually comes out every 2 years or so. The CDC says that estimated 1 in 36 children are diagnosed with autism, which is roughly about 2.1 million children nationwide. All right. So, again, if you're like me or like my husband, you probably have experienced a little bit of everything in this bubble. There's joy, and then there's overwhelm. There's acceptance, and then there's worry. There's hope, and then there's confusion. What I want to do is normalize the fact that two things can be true at the same time. And it's okay to love your child like nothing, anything, ever before, and also feel all of these other things. Okay, so I just want to take a pause, just pause and ground us in that too, because I think oftentimes shame and guilt can try to take over when it comes to the initial diagnosis and trying to figure out, why did this happen? How did this happen? Why, all these different things possible. And that's totally normal. That's totally normal, okay? But what's important also in this is that the diagnosis isn't the end. It's actually the beginning. It's the beginning of being able to understand more, to understand the uniqueness of how your child moves about in the world. And that's also the beginning of acceptance. So I wanted to also offer that to us too. All right, so you're here to learn the steps. I have 3 steps for you on how to just really jump into this world of autism. Before I move forward, I'm just curious, how many of us in here, you could just raise your hand, how many of us have a child that is waiting to be diagnosed, not quite diagnosed just yet? Evaluation phase. Okay. How many of us received the diagnosis within the last 6 months? Okay. 1 year? 2 years? 3 years? 5+ years? Okay. How many of us are just I'm here to learn? Okay, awesome. It's helpful to know who's in the room. Okay, great. So number one thing that I tell parents, yes, you're going to feel like we talked about, all those feelings are possible to come up for you. But it's so important that we ground ourselves in information, okay? So number one, getting organized, okay? I sometimes struggle with that. I'll be the first to admit. But the best thing I could have ever done for my family was getting one of those dollar store binders and creating a file, okay? Why is that important, right? Right now, you're probably like, I don't even have a therapy in place right now, let alone multiple therapies. Why would I need that? Because on this journey, it's likely that you're going to meet and talk to several different practitioners. And the worst thing that can happen is trying to remember, gosh, when did we speak to Dr. So-and-so? I think that was 2024. It could have been 25. I'm not really sure. Keep this binder for yourself. And it could be a digital file. If you're a digital person, cool, to be able to do that. Yes?
Can I just add, write down those developmental milestones because they ask you those every time.
Yes.
Yep.
The more you can remember. Yeah. That's a very good point. Thank you for pointing that out. So did everyone hear what was said? Yeah. So make sure you're writing down those developmental milestones. When was the first time you heard, gosh, I mean,
when did they walk?
Yeah, when did they walk? When did they speak? When did they roll over? Exactly. Those, you think that you're like, well, I already answered that. Why are they asking me this? Well, you're in a different hospital system now. Or now you're having, and you don't plan for these things, right? I think in the last year, we've seen 3 different specialists, and you never know where you're going to be sent, right? And they ask you the same questions. You're like, gosh, don't you all use my chart? Like, why are you? And they do, and they still going to ask you the same question. So I do have a resource for you all, so to be able to keep us organized, and I'm going to offer you at the end. So don't worry, it's a template. You'll be able, and it's the same exact one that I use, okay? So yeah, staying organized, having that binder or that digital file is so important. A couple of things that I keep in mind is not only the list of the doctors and the last appointment and what their specialty is, but I also add notes. So what was the purpose of the appointment? What were the symptoms or what were the concerns? So then I'm able to, again, track back. I also keep, so my son is asleep. Wow, okay. Baseball drained him today. He just turned 5 in March, and he looks like such an angel, so I'm like a little distracted right now. He just turned 5 in March, but so we went through the IEP process, right? So his IFSP, do we all know what that is? The Individualized Family Service Plan, okay? That's a plan that is put in place during early intervention years. That's your 0 to 3 years, right? So your pediatrician may have said, hey, let's get your child evaluated. Great. The next step would be then creating an IFSP, Individualized Family Service Plan, to be able to figure out what services would benefit your child, right? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. She was diagnosed at 3 years old. Right. So you wouldn't have had an IFSP because that's for 0 to 3. Ooh, 0 to 3. After that, yeah. So after that, they graduate or they move on to the Individualized Education Plan, which is the IEP. Okay, that's done through the local school system. So if you're here in Charlotte, CMS. If you're in Fort Mill, the Fort Mill Public School System, etc. Now, not every child will qualify for an IEP. That's a whole other session. Actually, I see Tanya in here. That was her session right before this one. There's 504 plans. Essentially, though, when a child is aging out of early intervention, that triggers, basically it's about 3 months before they're about, I'm doing good, Tanya? Okay, good. I know myself. As long as she keeps nodding her head, then I know I'm doing good. So about 3 months before their 3rd birthday, they will go ahead and move from the IFSP, your service coordinator from the state or the county will set up a meeting with the school system. And then they'll go ahead and evaluate your child. Based on that evaluation, they'll determine if they would qualify for benefits through the school system, okay? That does not mean, let's say, for example, they say, you know what, your child doesn't qualify for services through the school system. It doesn't mean that they're not autistic. It doesn't mean that they don't need services. What it means is that for the school's purposes and for schooling support, they don't qualify. However, you can still receive services through private therapists, okay? So I just wanted to make that clear because I think sometimes parents will go, they have the IFSP, but my child was diagnosed, and now you're telling me they don't need services. They may just not feel as though at that time they would benefit from what the school is going to offer them, okay? And again, we could talk about advocacy and how to combat that if you feel, how to challenge that if you feel like that's the right recourse, but that's just basic kind of knowledge. Okay, cool. So begin researching, right? So we talk about early intervention. What else is there out there? So what I've heard is that sometimes there are families who, they go to the pediatrician, they receive a diagnosis. Cool. They're then told, go to ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis. And they're not told about occupational therapy. They're not told about speech therapy. They're not told about feeding therapy. Do any of our kids in here have food aversions? Do we all know that feeding therapy is a real thing? I hope so. And if you don't, that's okay. It's usually a speech therapist who has a specialty in feeding therapy, okay? But you don't know what you don't know. So you want to make sure that you're starting to do your research, okay? Some of us might have to research through tears. Some of us might have to research through frustration. We keep pushing forward, okay? And now you have a friend in me where you can just email me and just ask me all the questions, and I'm happy to do it. All right? And again, ask your pediatrician for evaluations and referrals. One of my pet peeves is that, again, some service providers will see the autism diagnosis and not really listen to the symptoms that you're talking about that your child might be experiencing. For example, my child has, and we're all parents here, right? We could talk about poop. We're good? Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay. So my child hasn't pooped in 4 days. They're dealing with constipation, or the reverse, diarrhea, all the time, right? You go to the GI doctor, the minute you tell them they're autistic, well, that's very similar, that's very common for autistic children, right? And then it kind of ends there, right? This is why the research is important, because one, trust your gut. Trust it. If you feel like maybe there's a gluten intolerance, maybe it's something that they're eating or something that they're not eating, press on to ask for more evaluation. Maybe it's an x-ray, maybe it's a CT scan, maybe you have to go see an allergist, right? We don't know, and that's just an example. So I just want to encourage you to do that. And also, you don't need to have all the answers. You don't, okay? Start with where you are, and little by little you build. In the last 3 years since we received Aaron's diagnosis, I have learned so much. And again, I have a master's degree, I have certifications, I have the student loans to show for it, all of it. But nothing taught me more about autism than being on this journey with my son, right? And there's still so much that I don't know, right? So you're not gonna know all the answers, and that's okay. But that's why research, and then my next thing, getting connected, is so important. So you wanna find your local and online support communities. Autism Society of North Carolina, they're here, okay, today. If you haven't connected with them, connect with them. Most of their navigators are parents of children on the spectrum as well, or adults on the spectrum. So you want to be able to plug in and see when's the next time they have coffee chats. TACA, the Autism, I think it's the Autism Community Association, I might be butchering that, but the acronym is TACA. They often have coffee conversation meetups on Saturdays in North and South Charlotte, okay? That's another really great organization. We have at Rooted Hearts about once a year at this point. We're hoping to have more events where we bring parents and caregivers and advocates together. We did a charcuterie making board party last year. We had some of the ladies in here attended, and it was so much fun. And we had, some of us were like, I haven't been out of yoga pants in like a year. That you gave me a reason to get dressed, right? Cool. Like, if that's all it is for you, like, welcome, you're in good company. So it's just, find your people. Find your people. We're out here, okay? There's churches that have some really great supports. Carmel Baptist is one of them. They have the Joy Ministry. Forest Hills Church also has a special needs ministry. My church, Eastgate Charlotte, we're tiny but mighty, but we love you and your children, and meet you at the door, okay? Whatever it is, find your people. All right, so let's talk about the thing that a lot of us don't really like to talk about, the wait list, okay? How many of us right now are on some kind of wait list? Okay, yeah. Actually, that's us too, because we were realizing, yeah. Common, okay? So you're on these lengthy wait lists, and you're like, what do I do? I know my child needs support. I don't know what to do, okay? This goes back to the information part that I shared earlier. You want to be able to inform yourself on sensory strategies, okay? The first thing is understanding what are all the senses, all right? I think growing up, we all learned about the 5 senses, right? Smell, touch, hear, taste, see, right? I think we're all in agreement with that? Okay. This is one of those things that I learned being in this autism world. Apparently, there are two others that are very important to individuals that have sensory sensitivities, okay? Or not even sensitivities, maybe that require more sensory input, okay? So proprioception is one of them. That's body awareness, all right? Any runners in here? Kiddos that elope, that will take off? Yep, okay. A lot of times they lack that body awareness, right? That sense of danger. So they'll just take off. Yes?
Is it the same, like, my son pays me a lot, like, it's like Mrs. Louise. Is that kind of like the same?
It could be. It could also be maybe he's got some, like he's dealing with like anxious thoughts or feelings, so he's kind of swaying or doing what he can. Like me, I will like shake my leg, and that's usually because I'm anxious about something, right? Or I gotta stop doing this, but I pick my like fingers, right? I mean, we all have we all stim, it's just sometimes more pronounced or more profound in individuals, neurodivergent individuals. And so it could be, it could be that, again, it could just be just trying to wiggle the anxiety out. Yeah, good question. And then vestibular, movement, okay? I think if anything, I would say the vestibular is probably more what he would if it were that. And so any kiddos kind of just do the absolute most, and you're like, why? Like, why? Why are you moving? Like, it is 2 o'clock in the morning, you're jumping, you're pressing your toes into like skin. Anyone have any kiddos that do that or require tight hugs or anything like that? Yep. Okay, a lot of it's that. It's needing that input, that sensory input, okay? So, again, I can speak for an hour and a half on just this, but I will not do it justice the way like an occupational therapist would. So I'm here to give you the basics, and now you can do more research and be prepared to be just like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense, okay? So again, step 2, become aware with how this impacts your children. It's gonna help you so much in understanding why they might do certain things or why they might not do certain things, okay? And the other reason why this is especially important is because sensory regulation, if a child is not regulated, they cannot learn. It is very hard to function, okay? So let's pause and think. I know for me, if there's too many sounds going on and I'm overstimulated, don't bother talking to me, don't bother doing anything. Like for me, my husband knows. He'll ask me. Before he puts the dryer and the dishwasher on at the same time, and Elmo singing in the background, and then he's talking to me, and then Teams is going off because somebody's trying to get me at work, I'm overstimulated, okay? So, and then imagine whatever that scenario is for you. Some people's like nails on a chalkboard, right? And it's just like it throws you off. Imagine someone telling you, okay, Susie, we're gonna learn now. We're going to therapy now. And you're in this constant stuff. For some of our kids, they're in that constant state 24/7, which is why any of our kids deal with sleep issues, don't sleep. Okay. A lot of that is that. So while you're waiting for therapy, it's not a time where you're like, well, gosh, there's nothing I can do. There's so much you can do. Actually, that's a really good time to meet their sensory needs, to ensure that you're able to help meet them where they're at. And you're not expected to do all the things, but if you can at least know, you know what, he really likes to dig his toes into my skin, or he really likes to squeeze or, press, or he needs tight hugs, or whatever it is. Now you're able to articulate to that therapist when the time comes, this is what's happening, And hopefully they know exactly how to address it. Maybe give you a sensory diet, right? It has nothing to do with food. It's just basically a plan, a protocol specifically made for your child. Okay? Because the body has to feel safe. If you hear nothing else in these 45 minutes that we're together, this is the one thing that I need you to highlight, do whatever it is. The body has to feel safe before the brain can learn. If the body feels out of control, it's super hard for the brain to retain anything. Okay? I'll pause there, see if there's any questions. Awesome. Please don't fall asleep on me. I know it's hot in here. We're almost there, okay? All right. Okay, so where do I even start, right? Like, I just named all these things, and it's just like, Jomaira, where do I start? Number one, creating a starter sensory toolkit. Okay, so this is something that you can keep in the car. This is something that you can keep maybe on the way to a doctor's appointment or at the doctor's. You're like, you know what? I have all these items that we keep in a little bag or in a little box or whatever it is. That it can have fidgets, jewelry. So any of our kiddos like to chew on things or bite things or eat non-food items. Yep, I'm there too. Jewelry is a game changer. So it's basically little pieces of, I don't even know what it's made of, but that you can wear around your neck. Sometimes kids will wear it on their wrists, whatever it is. They're awesome. Go on Amazon. You'll find it there. Yes. Yeah.
It's called art therapies.
Yes.
And they have different levels of artness of achieving gymnastics. Just reading them.
I love that. Art therapy is very good. The only thing I will say, they are fairly expensive. They're not cheap, which is good. That means it's good quality. What I would recommend is get something off of Amazon first, see what they like, and then invest in one of those. Because, I know ARC has, the chew sticks, and then they have the necklaces. Your kiddo might be someone that maybe they get more stimulation from, the back of your teeth because maybe there's something going on with their sinuses. So the chew stick will be better than maybe just something that they just chew on, like a binky or something like that. So that would be my recommendation, but I would say definitely when you're ready and you know, oh yeah, they like this type of thing, art therapy is great. I agree. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yes.
We've tried several chew toys, and he prefers a shirt.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out which would fit in better than the shirt logos.
I know. That was my younger brother growing up. It was, yeah, and my son actually does that from time to time too. So depending on the chew necklace, do you want to share?
No, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It might be helpful for us too.
No, I just told her to be. Yeah.
Okay, a bib. Yeah, that's good. A bib. Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Yes.
It's a question not necessarily related to this, just in terms of therapies. So when your child gets diagnosed, they tell you ABA, OT, speech. How do you determine the right formula? Because there's only so many hours in a week.
Yep.
If we do ABA, we can't do speech and OT.
Yep.
Again, and also because a lot of the services end by 5, right? So how do you
Yeah.
get the right therapy
Sure.
for your child?
So I have some ideas, and please, others chime in, because, again, I am not the only expert. We are all experts in this room, okay? Number one, there are some ABA therapies that offer in-home and offer up to 7, 8 o'clock at night and on the weekends too. So that could be an option for your family. The second thing I would say is prioritize. What is and I know it's all important to our kids, and it's heartbreaking that we even have to make this decision, right? But I would say prioritize right now, currently in this season of life, what do you think is the most important? For example, if your child is a runner, okay, I would probably say something like ABA is really important because safety. Again, if their body doesn't feel safe, we can do speech therapy 7 days a week. Are they really going to retain anything, right? So I would say definitely think about what are the things that you're hoping for your child in this current season, and then prioritize based off of that. The third option I would say is, and how old is your son or daughter? 6. Okay, so are they ABA or school or both?
Well, he was doing ABA when he was in pre-K, now he's in kindergarten.
Yep.
The school day is longer, so he was going to school until 3, and then ABA from 3 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
And you notice he was just exhausted
Yeah.
after school, so
Mm-hmm.
had to pull him out of ABA
Sure.
for now.
Sure. Yeah. And that's realistic. Right? I don't know if anyone else, like, you have to, it's tough. It really is tough. But good on you for listening to your, like, watching, like, okay, it's too much on them. We need to scale back a little bit. That's awesome. Again, I would say, like, do as much as you can in school. So OT and speech, if you feel like that's something that he needs, and that he's entitled to that, fight like hell through the IEP process or 503 plan and get that in school.
Yeah, he's getting those services
Perfect.
at school, but I feel that he could benefit from additional occupational therapy.
Yeah.
Outside of school.
Yeah. So I know for some people in their IEP, they can have their IEP set up where they can, like, the child is excused from coming in a certain day at a certain time, or they're pulled out early to go to that private occupational therapy. So that's another option, right? Again, people's work schedules, all that can kind of play into that. But like, for us, for example, speech is at 8 a.m. The earliest I can get my son to school is 9:30. So that's what time he goes to school. We're not rushing. This is what it is. And it's in the IEP plan. So hopefully that helps to give you some ideas and some ways that you can go. Anyone else have any suggestions or thoughts? Sure.
I would just say, try this plan, with the extra occupational therapy. You don't have to be married to it forever.
That's right.
Try it for a few months and 6 months or whatever you think and see how it goes.
I agree. Yep. Yeah. You also, just because you have something in place, if it's not working out, you're allowed. You have permission to say, it's not working, let's pull them. That's okay too. Okay? I know we're running behind schedule, so I just want to go really quickly. Step 3, please, thank you. Please do not forget about yourselves. Please do not forget about yourselves. And I am talking to myself right now. Okay? Please do not forget about yourself, whatever that looks like, okay? Taking walks, journaling, praying, resting, binge watching the Kardashians. I'm not judging you. You do what you need to do, okay? Whatever works. But make sure that you are taking care of yourself, and remember that you don't have to do this perfectly. You have been chosen to be your child's mother, father, grandparent, caregiver, friend. That was by design. And so you have everything in you right now to be able to do for your child. Okay? I know that sometimes it can feel exhausting. You probably feel like you're going in circles, but you have everything that you need. Okay? Awesome. All right. So again, start small, start simple, start somewhere, anywhere, okay? You are your child's safe place. So no therapy, sensory toy, or place can replace that, okay? So even if you've tried everything and there's just no way around it, you're gonna have to wait 3 months for therapy, guess what? Being home with mom or dad is the safest place that they can feel. And that's okay, okay? And then showing up today again means that you're already doing a great job. So I just want to encourage you to keep up the great work, okay? I see you. I see you. And you're doing awesome. All right, so as I mentioned in the beginning, I have some tools for you. You can scan this QR code or take a photo and then scan it later. This is personally what I use to keep track of my son's therapies, appointments, all that jazz. Okay, so make sure you take care of that. I'm gonna leave that up. I have, like I said, I have a special treat for you all. We talked about sensory kits. I would love for you to be able to leave here with your own sensory kit that you can build right now. So Tanissa's here again. And on your way out, we have bags for you so that you can go ahead and pick and choose whatever it is that your child, do you think they might like? Even if you don't know if they're gonna like it, that's okay, let's try. And bring it home and see what happens. The only thing that I request is that you stay in contact with us, and there is a application form. If you have a chance, if you wanna pass those around to anyone who hasn't yet, fill it out really quickly. We have 2 minutes. I'm tracking with you. We all want to see Tanner and Taylor, so I'm not going to keep us behind. And so, yeah. This is our information. Again, if you want to go ahead and wait and fill out the application, we have a special link for anyone who attended to Connect Strong. And you can fill it out there. Or again, if you want to leave with it today, fill it out really quickly, and you can pack your bag on the way out. All right? And that's all I have for you today. Thank you.